And I try to remind a lot of indies that it is going to be longer and harder than you think it's going to be fine. The average company takes 8 years to become profitable and stable. It takes 8 years to make something happen. Are you ready for that?
Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we unpack the messy, beautiful intersection of creativity and business with the artists, marketers, and founders shaping our culture. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made, and I'm the host of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Brian Hemserk, art leader in gaming, Cheryl Platts, author of the Game Development Strategy Guide, and Zoe Hawkins, content and creative resilience strategist. I'm forever grateful for the supporters of our podcast, and we are always open to more sponsors that align with our creativity. That said, Pixel Retentive is brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a creative studio that produces entertainment quality animation and illustration for brands that want to stand out in gaming, entertainment, and pop culture. We help companies tell stories that resonate with imaginative audiences and turn viewers into fandom. Whether your brand needs creative strategy, an exciting trailer, a fully animated series, or just some engaging motion graphics, we got you covered. Visit epicmade.net and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign. All right, so with us today, we have Corbin Reeves. Welcome to the show, Corbin.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So Corbin is a game designer and studio founder focused on building sustainable pathways into the industry for emerging talent. Through Azure Ravens Entertainment, he has built a studio model centered on long-term sustainability, co-development, and contract work in the indie space, while also mentoring the next generation of developers as a professor at universities across Michigan. His work bridges game design, business infrastructure, and education, offering a practical perspective on how indie studios survive and grow in a competitive market. That is pretty awesome, man. And good for you for paying it forward and being a professor and teaching kids across the whole state. That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, it's, teaching's always been something that's been really fun for me to dive into and explore. I had a boss when I got started a little while back who said that when you reach the kind of end of your educational journey and you've kind of hit that forefront of your career, that's the time to come back and help those who are just getting started. And that hit really hard for me. And I was like, oh my God. And, I wouldn't have gotten into gaming if it hadn't been for a professor who gave me a shot. So I was like, you know what? I love this. Plus I had way too many professors who were bored of it. And I wanted to bring that love and that intensity to it. And so the joke I used to tell my boss over at Kettering is the day I don't love it is the day I'm gone. The day I'm not having fun and excited to be here. And he's like, well, could you maybe give me a month or a semester, maybe heads up? And I was like, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, man. And I love that. I've often considered how I might return to my alma mater and, give back and teach a little there. I've done some presentations and talks and stuff and try to pump the kids up, but haven't, actually taken the jump into trying to be faculty or adjunct professor at all, but it's on my list. I just have too many things right now. So, but eventually I will get there. So you're inspiring me, and I think I'm not a significant amount older than you. So that's good. Cool, man. So look, I'd love for our audience to get to know you a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So can you tell me how long you've been in the industry and what project you're most proud of so far?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry for about 10 years now. I got my start while I was still actually in undergrad, doing some of those revenue gen projects where they're like, oh, jump in, revenue share possibly if it comes out. And one of them did come out, which was great. That was kind of a shock. Didn't make a ton, but that was cool.
Hey, dude, the money coming in at all is like, oh shit, this actually is a thing. There's commerce.
Like, oh
it worked.
But the project that I think I'm most proud of, we built at the start of COVID the first virtual production studio in the Midwest region. And we did this in a old paper factory with some imported Russian sensors. And they came fully disassembled in a little cardboard box. I was like, there's no way this is the sensors. And I was up till 2 a.m. hanging those things, figuring out the workflow to get it into Unreal, working with some amazing indie directors here in Michigan to try to spin this up to get that live capture on a green screen. It was so out of left field for what we were doing, but it was so much fun to get to explore that and kind of take our gaming expertise and apply it in a different way.
I love that. Yeah. It's always fun to stress that creativity.
Yeah.
And how many ways can you do that and throw some new tools in the mix and like, see what happens. That exploration and play is like the core part of creativity that like gets me excited to do anything, right? It's like, how can I
Same.
like do something a little new here, add a new thing in the mix and make it cooler and better and unexpected, right? That's always lovely. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
fantastic,
Well,
man.
it was we were also kind of blazing a little bit for us. We were blazing a trail at the time. We're like, oh man, nobody's really doing this. Unreal Engine 5 hadn't come out yet. Mandalorian's whole case study hadn't dropped yet. And we had a contact at Epic, and she reached out. She goes, "Hey, you guys still doing virtual production and stuff?" I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "I'm gonna send you some cool stuff. I want you to look at it and let me know what your thoughts are." I was like, "Yeah, sure." And she sends it over, and I was like, "Oh, who's been working on this?" She goes, "Oh, it's a small little company." I was like, oh, "Okay, cool." And I was like, looking through it, I was like, "Man, these guys are doing some crazy stuff. The budget behind this must be insane." I go, "Who did you say it was again?" She goes, "Oh, do you know who Industrial Light and Magic is?" And I go, "Oh, no, I have no comment. This is
What
perfect."
the literal like OG special effects
Yeah.
company, like, yeah, okay, that checks out.
I was like, I'm gonna redo my
Made
workflow.
Star Wars. You guys ever heard of Star Wars?
Yeah.
Anybody? No, maybe not. I don't know.
It was just I was dying. I was like, you cannot set me up for failure like that. You're like, "Look, could you review this?" And then you send me the best in the industry. And she's like, "Well, do
Literally
you have any
made the
comments?"
industry.
Yeah, I was
Like,
like, my comments are I need to change. It's not
yeah,
them, it's
yeah.
me.
I
But it was
love it, man.
so fun doing something like that and pushing. And I try to tell everybody, gaming is such a great connective tissue to so many other disciplines. And so
Mm.
taking that expertise that you're building out and not being afraid to push into subgenres or things outside of our space can help kind of keep you alive when there isn't work.
Yeah, I mean, and it's we have a lot of storytelling components in there, a lot of big production components. Like
Mhm.
it's there's a lot of interesting things, and nothing's quite like gaming.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the communities that it builds, and we've been kind of on a little gaming streak now that's going to continue on the podcast. So I think there's going to be about 20 or so episodes that are all focused around game designers, people that
That's
produce
awesome.
games, all the stuff. Last episode we had Cheryl Platts on, who is amazing and does a lot of different stuff in the game design industry. And I think she's currently the creative director at Pokemon Game Studio. So no big deal, but love like the insight she has and the depth of knowledge. I mean, she's worked all over the place, but it's really cool just understanding this whole perspective. So if you're dialing into this episode, definitely make sure you go on the ride with us, because games and creativity go one and one. Like there's no
Mhm.
separating business and creativity. That's like a absolute pinnacle moment here in that type of industry. So look, you talk about what sustainability
Mhm.
is for a indie studio, and like how does that look in 2026 here. What are some of your thoughts around that?
Terrifying, I think is probably the best way
Yeah,
to word it.
yeah.
We've been
The world
around
is
for
terrifying. So
Oh yeah, it is. And we've been around for 8 years. We've kind of seen the cycle of, feast and famine a couple of times now. And to stick around for 8 years as an indie studio in Michigan, where there is like three major studios, is for us, it's been something we've been very, very proud of. But it comes quite often with this understanding that you have to constantly be looking at new work potentially. You have to be planning for how are you going to pivot. You've got to stay relatively lean and reasonable. But at the same time, like you can't not participate in the broader community. Like we've been almost all referrals for our work over the last 8 years. And the reason those referrals come in is we're so active in the space and in the industry. And I tell quite a lot of indie studios, it's very easy to put your heads down and say like, "Oh, I'm working on this project now. This is my focus." And we're bad at social media. We don't do anything with social media like we should. But when it comes to the broader community, the Midwest region, we're really active in that space because any effort we put out into helping those developers, I've seen it over the last 8 years. It comes back tenfold. And so that's always been worth it
mm,
for us. And so, and like if you even step out of the cost like benefit there, improving the ecosystem that you're living in is a net positive
yeah,
for everyone.
the grass is greener where you water it. and
Yes.
not on the
Oh,
other side.
yes.
I love that saying. So I love that. Yeah, there's so much volatility in the world and in this industry and in any industry that's technology, which is like most industries now. And it's we like just having no idea what to expect. I
Mhm.
love your perspective there. It's like you have to be lean and reasonable,
Mhm.
and that's always helped me weather the storms. I started this business, Epic Made, in 2006 and quit my last job in 2007. And the economy crashed and like everything went to shit right then when we graduated from college. My wife and I, and so being lean and being reasonable is the absolute way to survive, right? I don't care if you're making a shitload of money right now. Like, assume that
Yeah.
all that's going to go away, and like store away, make smart decisions. Don't buy flashy bullshit. Like, this isn't being an indie startup in any vibe. Like, you shouldn't be leaning into flashy bullshit unless you have like no debt and like you've got a year's worth of revenue saved up to like make sure the
Mhm.
business is like able to run no matter what. Like, otherwise, like, I don't want to see you buying really nice cars and really nice watches and jewelry. Like, it's otherwise like you're doing this for the wrong reasons, right? And that's been the
100%.
secret on my side. Like, I literally drove a $400 car until
Mhm.
2021. And I started my company in 2006, like I said. So, like,
Yeah.
and my car's blue book value was $400, but I got 35 miles a gallon. It looked like shit. It was half Bondo. It was a it was a Hyundai Accent that my grandmother, my bought off the lot for 10 grand in 2004, right? So like it was 20 years, it was almost 20 years old when I was driving it. And like my dad had drove for a while. It kind of was like this beater car that we all just passed around the family. And I needed an extra car when I got it after my dad passed away. So like, but yeah, it was for me, it was a principle thing, and it reminded me
Yeah.
what was important every day when I got in that car and I drove it to the office. Because I have, I always have, my phone's always like 2 to 3 years old, but like still worth
Mhm.
$1,000, $1,500 depending on what model it is. And I
Oh,
always
yeah.
have like a $3,000, $4,000 laptop at the time, right? But like my car was worth $400 because that's
Yep.
all I needed to perform the job that needed to make me money for my business, right? So just always being lean, always being conscious of where
Mhm.
you're investing your money. Don't have a bunch of subscriptions and bullshit like that you don't use. Like, and as soon as you're done using them, cancel them. Even if it's 20, $30 a month, that stuff all adds up. So
Oh, it
the
does.
lean mentality is and reasonable is absolutely the thing I think I really stress, because especially when you're doing well, it's really easy to go, oh, let's just buy a bunch of bullshit because we'll just keep making money. So you never
Yep.
know what's going to happen.
I had a meeting with a good friend of mine who was also a client of ours at the time. He'd hired us to build a really cool demo for him, and we were in a call with a good friend of his who was the former director of production over at Airship Syndicate, and they were talking about the cost of the game. And our client, my buddy Austin, goes, "Oh yeah, I think we've spent about X amount of money so far." And I go, "Oh, no, 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 we actually have spent exactly this amount." And he goes, "You know that off rip?" I was like, "I know every dollar, where it went, who's it spent on, what's it being used for." And he goes, "Why?" I was like, "Because I check every day. I keep track of every expense and where it goes." He goes, "Well, don't you have a guy for that?" I was like, "Yeah, I have a guy for that. His name's Josh. He's awesome. I trust him with literally everything." I was like, "And he gives me the report at the end of every day." And I go, "Cool." And I read over everything. I was like, "Because the moment you don't know where your money's at, where it's going, or what's going on, how are you going to look at everybody at work and say, 'Yeah, we're going to have work next month'? You have no idea. You need to
Yeah.
know your business inside and out, and you need to know where it's going and what's going to happen to it. It's there's that conversation of the luxuries, like you were saying, and buying those luxuries and things like that. The studio, all my guys joke all the time about the reason I'm in the games industry is to make video games. Money is a byproduct that allows
Yep.
us to make more video games. And I was like, yeah, 100%. That's my goal. My goal is to keep making video games until I am so old I can't. And if I can keep
Yep.
doing that here forever, beautiful. Because I've never had more
Why
fun
not?
than here.
I love it, man. Yeah, it's really, if you're money motivated, it's going to be really hard to stay alive in this
Yeah.
industry. But if you are passionate and love the space, and that goes for any kind of creative industry, because if you're just doing it for the money, like, you might get some money, you might make it, but you're going to burn out when it's hard.
Yeah.
But if you're really motivated by the creative and the idea that you're manifesting something with, your team, it brings a lot of joy. And that said, you still, like you said, have to be dialed in on the money, because you have to look at
Yeah.
money as a tool to prolong what you're doing and to afford the ability to take some risk and do some things and grow. But yeah, if it's just start being like, oh, I got all this money in the bank, I better spend it. There's been times where it's like, I have lots of money in the bank relative to me. It's like, oh, well, I could do all these other things. Like, yeah, but I don't know what it looks like in 3 months. Sometimes I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what like 2 weeks looks like from now, and that's just how it goes sometimes. So yeah. Um,
100%.
yeah, so I was going to say, how you do a lot of code development and contract work. How has that shaped your stability, with your studio?
Yeah, so that's, for us, that was a funny story. We had never, the studio itself had never planned the first year to still be in existence beyond that. We had planned, open the studio, make a small couple micro projects, and then go all get jobs in the industry, what everybody at the time was thinking about doing. But we got a client project almost immediately, built that out, and we were like, oh, this was a lot of fun. Shipped it. We underbid on it egregiously, but we were
Uh,
stoked.
of course,
Um,
yeah, that's what everyone
and
does at
then
first.
Oh yeah. But then the work kept coming and we kept getting way more work. And what it ended up doing for us is it created this kind of for a long time it put us almost in a zombie state because we weren't really conscious of it. We were like just doing enough work to cover our costs and our expenses and a little bit extra to cover our independent work that we were building on the side. And
Right.
we didn't have a good understanding of the broader industry when it came to other codev studios and how they were working. And what we ended up doing is we ended up going out and I reached out to other studio heads. Hey, how are you billing? How are you pricing? How are you reaching out? How are you doing all these things? And I've been incredibly lucky with mentorship over the years, and I've gotten some incredible mentors who've come on and given us advice. And it ended up shaping our studio to give us this really solid foundation of like comfort. Because now we can staff, half the team or 75% of the team on different client projects. And then the remaining percentage of our team, we can staff on our independent work and kind of push that forward. There's a few publishers I've been talking to for years on our independent piece, and either it wasn't the right timing or like it was for them, but it wasn't for us. And they're like, well, if you're still working on this, I was like, oh, we will be. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah. And we just kind of keep moving it forward, moving it forward. And it's slow moving, but it's going. And we're still working. I remember joking around with a couple of buddies of mine who were also running studios in Michigan at the time. And I said, no matter what, I think we'll probably still be here in 5 years. And they were like, oh, yeah, no, us too. And I was like, oh, you guys are burning investor cash or angel funds and
Yeah,
whatnot. And they're like, yeah, I was like, we have no outside money. We did a little small friends and family round with just like our like blue collar families. And the rest of it's been codev work. And I was like, you guys should really consider how to do that. And I think one of them's still open. The guys over at Parhelion Games, they just launched a card game and they've done wonderful, wonderful work. And they've Andrew Yang is the CEO over there, and he's phenomenal at keeping it alive. His model is burn the boats or burn the ships. When you hit the end of a road, he's like, if you have a way out, you're not going to fight as hard. And so he'll end a project and like fully end it. And not my model, but his model has saved him a couple of times.
that's awesome, man. A couple things you said in there were cool. My dad was an entrepreneur and kind of taught me a lot of things, and he had a whole like side business that was just kind of like whimsical, comedic things. But it was called the Official Shit Company, and it was all just about like how dealing with life and shit are synonymous, and then like it's all these like parallels and euphemisms. But like one of his favorite saying was like, the only time shit's a problem is when it ain't moving, right? So it's like,
Hmm.
as long as you're making progress and you're learning and iterating and you're not getting stuck in the bullshit, like then you're all right, So,
Oh yeah,
I gotta bring that back sometime. I do like have little like notebooks and stuff, but I,
you
I love
should.
that. So I'd love to ask, what did you learn when you did all that outreach to other studios? Like you talked about pricing and positioning. I'd love to,
Yeah.
maybe offer some insights to the audience about some things you picked up that were maybe shocking or that you think have really helped you in the nuance there.
Yeah. So the first thing that what I think was shocking to me and a bunch of other people was they responded. I reached out to these other studio heads and I was like, hey, I know that's kind of like your tricks of trade and how you do your business. Would you be willing to tell me? And they were like, yeah, 100%. And that was
Yeah.
shocking to a lot of people. But I try to remind everybody this industry is small. Helping somebody doesn't hurt you. And the work that you're losing out on, if somebody else does it, is work that you probably couldn't have done anyway or wouldn't have come to you anyway. And so, and,
Yeah.
and that creates this kind of cyclical cycle of like, then if those people end up with more work than they can handle, they'll pass it on to you. And so that was probably the first big takeaway for me. The next was we were egregiously underpricing because
Mm,
we wanted to make games and we wanted to
right.
make games really badly. And we didn't really care, but if we could eat and we could have a place to stay, uh, and we could make games, life was perfect. But that
Hmm.
underpricing was not, it was not passing that sniff test. So
No.
we were doing high quality work. People were looking at it, but then they were questioning, how are you doing it for this price point? Um, and
It
it clicked.
delegitimized the work because the
It did.
price was too number. It seemed sketchy, right? Like
Yep.
I get that, and we've
I
been
had a,
there.
I had a
Everyone's been there.
Oh yeah, I had a good buddy of mine. They were working. He was working over at Opti Games on Sparkball, and he was like, "Oh, we might need some engineering help." I was like, "Okay, cool." And he was like, what's the cost?" I was like, "Ah, for you, man, it'd be this amount. That's my operating cost plus a little bit extra to cover some overhead." And he goes, "Okay, I'll let you know." And I was like, "Ooh." That was a weird response from a good buddy of mine. A couple months later, I hit him up, and we didn't need the work at the time. We had other work. I was like, "Hey, whatever happened? You guys end up not needing the work?" And he goes, no, I took it up the totem pole. He goes, and I gotta tell you, he goes, there was no world we were hiring engineers at that price point. He goes, no world under the sun. He goes, I couldn't do it. I was like, oh, okay. What quote you end up going with? And it was about 3 times what we had quoted. And I went, oh. And he goes, not sure if that helps you. It did. It was huge for us because that's also when
Mm,
that kicked off a lot of our outreach to figure it out. We adjusted our pricing. It ended up creating a lot more sustainability for us. There was a fear. There's a fear with increasing your pricing that is, if I do this, will we survive the increase?
right.
And
That's always the fear.
it is. And I have found that it does price you out of some projects, obviously. But those projects probably weren't going to be the best for you anyway. Um,
Yeah.
I think my most intense projects have been the ones that have paid the least. And
Always.
it's like, oh,
Always.
they're
It's like
trying to save a buck. And
it's like the $500 logo client, like, hey, we need to, really, this is a
mhm,
major investment for us. It's going to change our lives together. And like, there's like, and then it's like the $50,000 logo client's like, yeah, let us know when it's going to be done. We trust you. Like,
yeah.
it's like,
Well, the
I,
value of
I,
money
I see
changes.
memes like that all the time. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. Well, they're not spending their money anymore at that level
Hmm.
typically either. Like this is budgets from a department and it's not an individual but they still need it to be successful. It still needs to work, but they also understand professional experience and when they're
Yeah.
hiring someone. And that's where if your price point falls into place where they know that you're serious about your business, now all that starts to align a little better. And we've all done
100%.
that, especially because we have so much passion in what we do. And it doesn't matter where your creativity manifests, if it's games or design or advertising or
Hmm.
whatever, but there's this weird idea that like we're just flattered that someone wants to pay us to do things we love and are passionate about.
Yep.
And the best advice I ever got on pricing, and I think what you did was absolutely intelligent and asking people and getting some industry feedback, especially even just like boldly reaching out to other studio heads that you may not even know. But you should the litmus test kind of that I've adopted that I think is great that I share all the time, that an illustrator shared with me is that whenever you give a price point, it should always be higher than the last successful project, and it should be so much higher that you just feel a little bit like an asshole, like it's just a little bit greedy, like because we have that disposition to not be
Yeah.
greedy. Because we are passionate about the work, you should always feel like it should just make you uncomfortable at the least when you're giving this quote, and that's probably the spot you need to fall in if you know you're an underbidder and an underpricer. Um,
100%.
so that's my thoughts around that. So,
No, I
was there
love
any
that.
sort of positioning and things that you like developed that you think really helped, like how you talk about your studio versus like had that changed versus the beginning and that
Yeah.
sort of stuff?
I used to introduce us as a small indie studio located out of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And I had he's a good buddy now, but he listened to me introduce it to now friend of ours, and he goes, "Why do you put a diminishing quantifier on yourself?" He goes, you're a 15-man
Ooh,
studio out of Michigan. You've shipped 12 products. You've worked on films. You've worked on games. You've worked on web apps. You've done anything somebody shows up and says, can you do this? You say, well, I don't think I'm the best fit, but if you need me, I can do it. If you want the best fit, let me introduce you. And then quite often they'll come back anyway, depending on if it didn't work out, and they'll say, hey, can you try this? Um, he goes, you are diminishing your value by saying small. He's like, you're 15 people strong and you've scaled to 30 depending on the project. I was like, well, yeah. And I was like, but I mean, I'm surrounded by giants. And he goes, so no one needs to know that. Nobody needs to know that you're not one. And I was like, oh. And that was just over. We were having some beers and food. And he just kind of
yeah.
hit me with that. And I think, there's very few things in the world that'll shut me up in a public setting in a meeting. I love talking and interacting with people. But that one, I think I was quiet for like an hour, just processing that and shifting my mindset. Because like I have always been an advocate for indies. I run IGDA Ann Arbor. We grew that from like 30 people to 1,300 members here in Michigan. And
Beautiful.
I pushed them so hard to legitimize themselves and remind themselves that they're game devs. And then here I was out there doing exactly the opposite because I don't like feeling. I realized through some introspection that I don't like feeling like I'm bragging about what we do. And I don't like feeling like,
Mm,
oh yeah, I've built this thing. Da, 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 da. I don't have the ego when it comes to it. I just want to make games. And
yeah.
the people I'm with, I love doing it with, making the games with them. They love being here. They should all go get work elsewhere. They could make a fortune more elsewhere, but they don't leave. I have the same guys that I started with, which is insane. Um, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that that lack of ego can be a benefit and a harm, right? When it comes to working with the same guys forever, they know that I'm here for them and for the projects. But when it comes to the external, you have to have that ego, even if you got to fake it a little bit, because a client hiring you wants the ego. They want the best. They want you to walk in the room and say, nobody can do this better than me. But you gotta
Yeah.
balance that.
Well, I don't think that that is a bad thing. Obviously, it's a good thing, especially in sales, and people struggle with that. It is just it does take a particular skill set and something you have to adjust to get used to. But there isn't the negative connotation needs to be removed from that. Like it's I don't think and I'm not saying you had a negative connotation. I'm saying people, as
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have
yeah.
that problem, need to drop that negative connotation because it isn't like, oh, you're better than anybody or you're this great thing. It's like, you know what you know, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. Like, it's okay to be like, I'm comp. It's no difference. Like, I know that this pen, says XYZ on it. Like, just you speak about it like that. It's a fact. Like, we've done these
Yep.
things and this stuff is here. And if you need that, I got you, right? When someone comes to us and they need animation or some sort of storytelling in a gaming pop culture setting, especially if it's like fantasy, whatever. It's like, I know we will hit this out of the park.
Yep.
I don't need to talk about anybody else in the world. Like, if you hired us for this, we will absolutely fucking crush this. And that's okay to say. And you should know that
Yes.
about yourself, right? I really love that. Um, so and there's something you mentioned earlier about people giving you advice, and
Mm-hmm.
getting advice and having knowledge is great, and getting work and building a thing is all about the doing side. And if someone's giving you advice, they know that the big differentiator is the execution, right? Like, you can have
Yeah.
all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't get up and do the shit, then it doesn't matter. So, and if you're a doer, you're going to figure it out anyway. So, like, might as well help you out and build that community like you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's absolutely amazing to be supporting each other and passing on knowledge. And that is essentially the core of what we're doing here at the Pixel Retentive Podcast, is creating an archive of amazing advice and experiences and wisdom so that people can get inspired and find direction and, appreciate the craft of how creativity and business comes together. You mentioned something earlier that I wanted to pry into a little more as well. You guys have this, sounds like a great balance of like, hey, we have
Mm-hmm.
internal work that we want to do. This is moving the needle, the big dream. The reason why everyone stays on your team and could make more money elsewhere is because of the culture, and they believe in the journey that you're on with the team, right? Oh yeah, I can
Yeah.
go get a job somewhere else at some big company and I might make another zero on my paycheck, right? But I might get fired at any point. Like
Yeah.
Corbin's not here, who I love and like I know loves me and like would do anything for me and in this team. And by the way, like I don't want to not be on the boat when it arrives at the destination I think they're going to, right? So
Yeah.
like there's that whole thing built in. And it's the same thing with my team. Everyone on my team is way more talented than we have budget to pay, including
Hmm.
myself. I can go get
Yeah.
a job somewhere making way more money than I pay myself. I've turned down jobs making way double the money I pay myself, triple sometimes. Like,
Yes.
but I know what I'm doing with my life, and the culture that we're building here is amazing. So yeah, circling back, like, how do you balance like your external projects that pay the bills and keep the fucking journey going, and they're like, hey, we have to build this to get to the destination, right? But like that's
Yeah.
a split, and it's a hard dance to do, right? So I'd love to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, so the dance is challenging. One of the things that we've been able to do now that we were able to kind of raise our prices a bit to a more sustainable rate and a rate that's like better industry wise for us as well. It's given us a little bit of a
Mm,
slush fund on every project.
yeah.
That gives us that ability to we bring on they're interns, but we call them apprentices because we don't we stole that from I think it's Sony Santa Monica way back in the day.
Ooh.
One of the old studio heads at Sony Santa Monica, they had an apprenticeship program that if they ran out of work, they didn't lay off the interns, they just reduced the hours, so the apprentices were still staffed, just not on a project. And so they didn't have any hours, but once more work came in, they put them back on and they staffed them back up. So
Mm,
what we did is we took that model because I don't like the hire fire of an internship. So what we did is we brought on some apprentices from the universities that I was teaching at, and we said, okay, if we run out of budget, your hours are cut. We'll cut you in order of seniority. If we have more budget, you come back on. It's as easy as that. You still, we do like workshops for them, like resume workshops, portfolio stuff to help them out. And I try to introduce them to people who might be able to give them full-time work if we don't have full-time work for them. But that turned out to be a really cool multiplier for us because we were able to train them really fast on our own independent work, then staff them on client projects, and all of a sudden they have a ton of hours and they're helping us generate revenue, and I can move my senior staff around. And it got to the point where now we staff our people, and I keep my my art director, my technical director, and myself. We get cross staffed, so we can go on any project that we want. We don't actually bill for our time on those projects because we flex around so much. But
mhm.
when we bill per head, we do a per head per month model. The clients know who's working on their project, who is their point of contact, who's building what. We got this really cool transparent model. We're hyper transparent with our studio, like internally, and I just took that to our clients as well. Kept that same level of transparency. Creates a little friction if they don't understand the game process, but like I said, I'm a professor. I love teaching, and so if they're willing to learn the
Mm.
game process, by the end of it, they're game developers themselves. But we, you know, it became this balancing act of staff the people who need to spin up the start of the project. And then after a month or two, bring on some additional help, train them up on the project. Then I can move my more senior talent to advisory, mentor, and review roles as my more junior talent help to carry some of those projects forward through some of just the grinding phases. Moved them back to the seniors back to the independent project for a bit. And then when we get to the polish phase, which is where a lot of junior talent struggles, is they can build the thing with good guidance and mentorship. They can build the thing. The polish they
Yep.
struggle with, and I would just flip them. I'd put them on to the independent project that's ours, put my senior staff back onto the client project, and they would carry it across the finish line. And then everybody's happy. The client's stoked. We're stoked. We've trained up these staff, and they move
And you
from
save some
this.
money too.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, right now our model is pretty much everybody makes roughly the same. And
Nice.
that's been how we've been for a while. It's if we can't pay full industry rate, or at least industry rate for the Midwest, we had a conversation internally with the team that we want to pay everybody roughly the same rate. And the team was like, love that. And then when we brought on apprentices, I was like, well, what do you want to do with the apprentices? And we had a big team meeting and they were like, well, could we afford to pay them roughly the same rate? I was like, it's a big ask, but we probably could do it. And they go, well, I think that's kind of where we're at right now. If we're not paying good industry rates and we can't split it up, didn't we say that this is how we would do it? And I said, yeah, we did. And they go, okay, well, if you're fine with it, we're fine with it. And I went, all right. And then I had one-on-ones with everybody just to make sure that nobody was crowd pushed into a decision.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And we got to the end of it, and I sat down with my technical director, Connor Thompson, and I was like, oh, well, hey, this is what we're going to do. And he goes, Good. I think it's right. If we're gonna live by these beliefs, we have to live by them in every step.
Integrity. It's what's missing in capitalism in so many spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. Yeah, so you have this fluctuating model. I love the idea
Hmm.
of branding them as apprentices and not interns. It feels
Hmm.
less condescending, or less like, oh, there's so much. Intern is like a it's like the difference between like a girlfriend and a fiance, right? Like it's like
Yes.
it's like the girlfriend's kind of like this disposable vibe. Like I'm not really serious about this person, but a fiance like could become your wife, right? So it's like an
Yep.
apprentice may one day be the master, and then like so
Yep.
like that's the idea. Like you go on that journey, right? And it's like apprentice, journeyman, master. I think those are like the blue collar trade like
Yeah.
descriptions, but I love that, and that used to be a part of all creative careers, right? Like if you studied under an amazing master artist, like you were an apprentice, not an intern.
Yep.
I think I love that. I think I'm going to actually steal that from you. That's going to be a part of Epic Made now as well.
Please
I think
do.
Ross would love that. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Super
when
cool.
I heard that at a lunch, we were at a lunch at Stardock. He was working over at Stardock as I think a general studio manager at the time. And when he shared that, I was like, "Oh my God." He goes, "Yeah, it changes their belief well too, right? You know, when you're an intern, you know that you might be gone tomorrow." He's like, "But with the apprentices, they talked about it as if they were the Sony studio. They were that team." And I was like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, yeah, I love that." And so now I have no regrets on doing that. That's been great for us.
that's fantastic, man. So let's talk about, for new developers entering the
Mhm.
industry, like what do you think the biggest misconception is about starting an indie studio?
That it's gonna be easier than it is. And that sounds condescending because people are like, "Oh no, I know it's gonna be challenging. I know it's gonna be hard." We started and we said we were gonna leave, go get jobs. Then after we decided we were gonna make our own independent stuff and not go and get jobs, we said, "Okay, it's probably gonna take us 3 years." It's been 8. It's been 8. I still don't consider us stable. I still don't consider us, like we're doing good. We're around. We're still here. We're
Yeah.
still here, but we're not to the point where
That's
I can
huge,
be
by the
like,
way.
I know
Monster. Good.
it
Yeah.
is, but like
Sorry.
we're not we're not where we thought we would be. I still don't take a salary currently from the studio. That's a personal choice of mine. I'm a professor, so I don't need to. I have my other job that I can do. But like
Gotcha.
there's check marks that we thought we would hit. And I try to remind a lot of indies that it is going to be longer and harder than you think it's going to be fine. The average company takes 8 years to become profitable and stable. It takes 8 years to make something happen. Are you ready for that? Are you ready? I know the industry. I talked to somebody the other day who was AAA, and he said, the industry is already volatile. Why not go indie instead? If I could risk being broke AAA or risk being broke indie, why not take the risk? And I said, but you need to understand the real risk. And he goes, okay.
Mm.
I was like, because you could end up. You need to know. Do you know what bankruptcy is? Do you know what that looks like? I tell everybody, my first hire was my technical director, Connor Thompson. Best thing I ever did. My second was my bankruptcy lawyer, and I've had the same one for 8 years, just in case, because you need to be aware of what could happen. And if you
Yeah.
don't, you're scared. And so
Yeah.
we had a blip the other day right after GDC where we thought that was it. We thought we were out of business. We had no work. We had nothing going on. And I was like, oh God, this is probably it. And I talked to a younger entrepreneur from a company called Bluebird Studios, and the CEO goes, "You're incredibly calm about this situation." And I go, "Yes." And he goes, "Everything you've worked on for the last 8 years might be gone by the end of the month." I was like, "Yes." And he goes, "How are you this comfortable?" I was like, "Because I know what I'm doing right now to try to keep it open. And I know what will happen if it fails. And I came to terms with that forever ago. But right now, I'm not sleeping. I'm putting in all the effort and work I can possibly do to keep this thing afloat, keep this thing alive. But I will never look back and say I didn't try hard enough because I knew
Yeah.
every avenue. I knew everything I could do." And he was like, "Okay." I was like, "What happens if your company goes under?" He goes, "Oh man, that's it." I was like, "Brother, you're 22. That's not it. You got a whole lot of life
Yeah.
left
Yeah.
and you need to know what happens next." And he's like, and that's, I try to pass that on to anybody I talk to about it. I was like, this industry, entertainment is hard and it's
Yeah.
going to hurt sometimes, but you need to know what's next. And it can't be, you can figure out all the worst case scenarios, but you need to know what the reality is. I'm a optimist. I joke that I'm violently optimistic, so optimistic it makes others violent. Um,
Okay.
but I'm also realistic in
Hmm.
my approach to studio management and operations because you have to be. You have too many people whose livelihood relies on you to not be realistic. And that's been a
Yeah.
really fun duality to walk.
Yeah. And I think you have some great advice in there and understanding. I had to come to terms with that myself early
Mm-hmm.
on. And look, there's no such thing as stability. Like no creature on planet Earth has stability. Why should human beings? Like unless you're
Mm-hmm.
born with a silver spoon, like there's no such thing as stability. And even then, those people can lose everything with the wrong moves and the wrong. Oh, they got this great investment, like, and then who
Mm-hmm.
knows? But like just look around the world, like everything is, you can't plan for COVID, you can't plan for whatever this next virus outbreak is. Hopefully it's fine, but like this cruise ship thing that's on the news every day, and if you like let yourself like get sucked into all the madness, you'll get spun out. So I mean, there's something special about entrepreneurs that like we can take a obscene, ridiculous level of stress and uncertainty, and still get up and take another step in the right direction. And you just got to keep moving, right? That's the advice
Yes.
like that my dad gave, and
We've got
it's such great advice.
we've got a little poster up on a couple of the walls in the studio. Keep moving forward. It's a mantra that we've been chanting forever. Is it does not matter, but if we keep moving forward, if we stay alive, the next opportunity will come. Our current client
Yeah,
project came out of nowhere. Came out of
yeah, and they
nowhere
do.
referral. And like it was,
Yeah.
you just got to keep moving forward. And my dad, he runs a flooring shop. He worked there 26 years and then he finally bought it. He jokes that he's a second generation business owner because I was the first. I bought a business and then he bought
Oh,
the place he
beautiful.
worked at, which is so funny. It makes me laugh every time he says it. He says it so proud. And he, one of the times when we hit a blip and I thought it was it, I thought that was it for the studio. He said, we should be so lucky to be this stressed out about something we love so much. He goes,
Yep.
so many people don't get that opportunity. And
High
I,
quality first world problems.
yes, yes. He's like, you should be so lucky that you're stressed that your 15 people might not have a job tomorrow. He goes, you have 15 guys working towards the same dream. He goes, we should be
Yeah.
so lucky. And that just,
it's
oh,
it's a it's a beautiful thing, and that perspective is so important.
yeah.
And whatever you need to do to mentally put yourself in the right place for you, that's like that extra knowledge on understanding what
Mm-hmm.
happens in bankruptcy. And like for me, I hit a point one time, it's like, I have all of this knowledge and wisdom about life and how to
Mm-hmm.
live, and so there was one point where it's like, oh, you might lose everything you've worked for 8 years. You can't. As long as your brain is still intact, you have
Yep.
all the most valuable things: the experience, the knowledge, the wisdom, the relationships. Like if the current iteration blows up, you'll just be right back at it in a better, different version, right? But for
Yeah.
me, there was this idea like, well, what happens if I can't pay my bills or I lose my house
Mm-hmm.
or like, and I go on this whole thing. It's like, and this is going to sound crazy and I'm a little crazy, but like I've grown my own food for most of my life. And like I grew up on 4 acres with a horse, like in
Yeah.
rural and like, in Virginia Beach. And I I know that like I could literally take a backpack and some of my camping supplies of my family and the seeds I have in the freezer and be fine indefinitely. And that
Yeah.
sounds insane, and I don't want to do that, but I would also love that life, until I needed like modern medicine for some random shit. But this weird like positioning of like everything's gonna be fine, right? So like
Yes.
worst case scenario, you're gonna be fine, and best case scenario, like you figure it out, and it just keeps moving forward. And I've always preached to my team, and they thought I was crazy. Like I'm not religious at all, and religion really like rubs me wrong. And I love religion for people if it makes them a better person. So I'm
Absolutely.
here for whatever you believe. But like for me, I have this spiritual belief that the universe wants us to succeed. Like me particularly
Yes.
with this company and the team I built. And when you have that unyielding, like just the audacity to believe that you are going to be successful with this and it's not going to fail. There's just some magic that happens. I can't put my finger on it. I can't tell you where every time I knew the end was near and I didn't know how I was going to pay the bills next
Hmm.
week, that the thing just fucking shows up because you're
Yep.
putting your energy and your time and your effort in the right place. And there's no plan B. When there's plan B and it gets scary, you escape and you go do plan B.
Yes.
When you don't have a plan B, when plan B is no, plan A is going to work because I wouldn't be happy in any other version of my life. There's something empowering that happens. Like there's a manifestation. It's like the fucking secret. I don't know if you ever read that book, but like it just happens. It always
Yeah.
happens. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been on the edge of like just this we're gonna fail. Like I don't know what to do. Like and then I get some money from somewhere. Sometimes it's a
Yep.
loan. Sometimes it's a 6-figure project that I didn't even know I was going to get. That like someone just called me that day. Like
Hmm.
that's just how it works. It's really wild, but like most people aren't equipped to deal with that level of stress.
No, we always joke. My dad and I have always joked that it's our Reeves family luck. My grandfather had it. He has it. I have it. We don't gamble. We don't bet on other things like that. We don't do any of that because why push our luck? We're already so lucky with the life that we've got, with the opportunities we've got. And why push it? Because luck comes to you when you need it the most. And it's the
Mm,
mix of preparation and
yep.
still being here that keep moving
Yeah.
forward. And it's
Yeah.
the current project we're working on. I'm loving it so much. It's so much fun. I'm getting to work on. It's a childhood friend of mine's brother-in-law hired us randomly out of nowhere. He's a European basketball player, and he was like, "I want to make a video game." And I get the call, and he goes, "Yeah, do you guys think you could do this?" And we were like 3 days from going out of business, and I was like, how quickly does he want to start?" And the guy
Yeah.
goes, "Tomorrow." And I go, "You're messing with me." He goes, "No." He goes, I heard from Brandon, you guys are the team to do this. And I took a look at some of your stuff. I think it's great." And I go, "Yes." He goes, "Cool. Can you send me some stuff?" I was like, "You'll have everything by tomorrow morning." We sent proposal docs. We sent system specs. We sent everything you could possibly need to be as comfortable and prepared as possible. And the next morning, I hop on a call and I go, "Here's the budget. Here's what this looks like. Here's the scaling. Here's everything like that. What do you think?" And he goes, "You sent me so much stuff." He goes, "How did you do this?" I was like, "Well, you said you wanted to start tomorrow." He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Tomorrow's today, buddy." And he goes, "I'm in. Let's do it." And we've been working together now for a couple months, and he's been wonderful. It's been great. But he asked me last week. He was like, "Why'd you come at that with such intensity?" I was like, "Because you were my lucky moment. You were one of the lucky moments, and I had to be ready." And you walked in the door and you said, "Here's what it is." And I was like, "Done, done." And we just leveraged the systems we had in place to make sure we could do that quickly. And now we've
Yeah.
got like a 18 months. I think we'll be working on this thing. And I'm so excited
Great.
for it.
Dude, and you just get that momentum and like the things just fall into place. I
Yeah. You
love it,
keep
man.
moving forward.
It's I hope there's so many little nuggets in this one for people for sure. We're gonna have some great little shorts to break out. But yeah, Corbin, this conversation went exceedingly fast. No one is surprised.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So I do have one last question for you before we wrap.
Yeah.
Is there anyone in your career that you'd like to shout out into the audience? Anyone or anything? Maybe a mentor, valuable resource, favorite client, something like that.
Yeah, I want to actually, there's a couple of them, a couple of mentors that I want to name. Dr. Pamela Spielman is the reason I got into games in the first place. She gave me an opportunity to be a professor, to get started as a professor. I started my career as a professor so young because of her support and her belief. And I'm so incredibly proud to help carry the torch she started to support people in Michigan in games. Larry Cooperman, formerly of Night Dive Studio, now retired, is a wonderful, wonderful individual who gave me an incredible amount of advice when I was just getting started, as he has for so many people.
And he works
Drew,
for Atari for forever. Wasn't he one of the founders of Atari?
I don't remember if he was one of the founders of Atari, but I do know that Atari acquired Night Dive and he helped out there for the last bit of his career.
Okay. But he's
But
coming on the show soon too, so that's
oh,
amazing.
I cannot name a better person with more
Oh yeah.
insight and knowledge on business, games, and creative. Um, And then I've gotten some support from some wonderful people like Drew Erich, who supported us with some game codev work, Alan Yeats, who's been some wonderful insight for us, and a designer friend of mine, Eric Avalos, who has spent so many nights giving us feedback and support that I could never repay it. And I'm sure there's so many more I'm missing, but My advice to every founder out there, everybody who wants to make something, is find others who are further along than you at anything that you need to do and just ask. Ask questions, see if they'll give you advice. The answer is they probably will. And you're probably just holding yourself back by not asking. That's been our cheat code is I have no shame in saying, hey, can you have a conversation with me about this topic? And it's always worked.
I love it. I love it. And look, it's a community and we all want to help each other. And it's a beautiful thing. So I love it, man. Thank you for sharing all these wonderful insights. So if we've been speaking with Corbin Reeves, and you can check out his website at azureravens.com. That's AZURERAVENS.com. But if listeners would like to follow up with you directly, is there a better place for them to go?
Absolutely. LinkedIn, feel free to reach out to me at LinkedIn
Okay.
anytime. I always take the meeting. That's my running bit is that if you want to meet with me, I'm happy to chat. And that is and like I said, quite often if you need advice or mentorship, you just need to ask. Same thing if you want to
Yeah.
know anything more or talk more about anything we covered today, just reach out on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat.
Love that, Corbin. And that's where we met. So I can attest to that. And shout out to LinkedIn again. Seems to be where I've made most of these connections for the last few episodes. We do a lot of referrals. We actually started doing a lot of outreach on LinkedIn and just making some new connections like this one here. So this has been amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, Corbin. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. And if this episode sparks something for you, share it with a friend or a colleague. And we will see you all next time. Thank you for tuning in. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.